Welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed the morning sessions, got an opportunity for some fine, unexpected food truck victuals, and you're ready for an exciting afternoon. Today's first speaker for the afternoon is Lieutenant General Steven L. Kwast. He currently serves as the commander of the Air Education and Training Command, which is located at Joint Base San Antonio, Randolph, Texas. Kwast was commissioned upon graduation from the United States Air Force Academy in 1986. He holds a master's degree in public policy from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, and he is commanded at the squadron, group, and wing levels, to include command of the 4th Fighter Wing at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in North Carolina, and the 455th Air Expeditionary Wing at Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan. Prior to his current assignment, General Kwast was the commander and president of Air University here at Maxwell, and he has more than 3,300 flying hours, including more than 650 combat hours during Operations Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Southern Watch, Allied Force, and Enduring Freedom. Please give a warm welcome to Lieutenant General Steven Kwast.
Thanks. Thanks. Appreciate that. Thank y'all. Please keep your seats. No clapping. I'm not that good. Okay, first of all, thank you for giving me a few minutes here. This is going to be a little bit different than some of the other ones. We're going to carve out some time to have a conversation, okay? So it's after lunch, so that's one of the techniques. You know, if I see you falling asleep, I'm going to throw you my water bottle. If it hits you in the face, then you can sue me. But if you stay awake, I won't get sued. How's that, okay? And I'll try to drink some of it so it gets lighter as we go along. I see all kinds of friendly faces in the crowd. That's good. I want to just acknowledge, though, that we have some leaders from downtown that are here that make this so much more special. Mayor, thank you for being here. Ron, the whole gang. Mike Watson, I have hung the picture of your building in my office. You need to come and see it. And I tell the story about your gift to this community and to all the airmen here with your friendship, your generosity. You are a superstar of Montgomery, Alabama, and one of the reasons people fall in love with this place. And I want to thank you for that. And so we talk about leadership, you know, these names I've mentioned, the mayor, Ron Sams, I could go through this whole list. Mike Watson, these are leaders. They're all different, really different. Some of them are kind of weird. But I'm here to tell you, this is the joy of life. If we were all the same, what a boring place this would be. We're all different. So what I want to do is talk to you a little bit about what I have observed over my lifetime, having lived in different cultures. So I grew up in Cameroon, West Africa, in a small tribe. My father was a cultural anthropologist and a missionary, but he wanted to be as far away from any Western civilization as possible. So he found the spot on the globe that had the least Western influence. And it was a small tribe about 9,000 feet up Mount Cameroon that he found, where, you know, we got there on the banana boat when I was about 5 months old, and we drove in a car until the road stopped, and then we got on horseback until the trail stopped, and then we hiked through across these tie bridges, they called them, which was 3 ropes, okay, across a gorge. The one rope you walk on, and the 2 you hang on to, you know, and they're very unstable, and there's wind blowing, and the gorge is 2,000 feet down at about a 90-degree angle. And I'm strapped to the back of my mom as she's going to this tribe. And that's where I grew up. I didn't have to go to school for 10 years, which explains a lot. I still, thank God for spell check, I still can't spell. But the reason I bring that up is because I'm going to bring you a perspective of leadership and innovation in civilization that is cross-cultural in a way that you can only get if you've grown up in a different world paradigm. Now, it's true, I grew up with my parents that, enculturated me, if you will, but my parents were so busy doing things that I kind of was raised with the tribe. And so it gave me a unique perspective as I came from Cameroon, and my dad then took a church in Los Angeles, in inner city Los Angeles, and dealing with the tribes there. The Bloods and the Crips, and that was more violent and more dangerous. But I was a small white boy and I could run. Okay, so that was my only survival skill. And I learned leadership through those prisms. And leadership is a funny thing, because in the American narrative, as we grow up in America, we watch movies and we kind of get a sense for what a leader is. And our narrative in America is a little dysfunctional with regard to leadership. In America, as you grow up in our culture, you think of a leader as this person on the stage that's really confident, and they are charismatic, and they say, take the hill, or here's the vision, and everybody gets excited, and everybody goes, and everybody does it, and you give the leader the credit for actually making it happen. There could be nothing further from the truth about leadership than that narrative. So do not believe the John Wayne, the lone wolf stories about leadership. It doesn't exist. So let me tell you, at least in my experience, how you lead in a way that allows innovation to truly happen. And it starts with the story of the chief of the tribe that I grew up in. So this chief, and it was a very unsecure environment. You know, the Juju dancers would go running through, and at night they were generally drunk on cornmeal, and or fermented cornmeal. You know, they would kind of make a poor man's alcohol, and you needed to go to ground, and or you know, if they found you, you know, your fate was uncertain. The terrorism as well was there. You know, my father was taken hostage a number of times at gunpoint. And we didn't know whether he would come back, but generally the government would pay the ransom when they took missionaries, so he came back every time, thankfully. But I grew up in a very insecure environment, and in an environment where you needed to be creative and innovative to stay alive and stay functioning as a tribe. And the chief of the tribe was a very smart man, because as you know, wisdom does not reside in one culture. There are people that are deeply wise about the human condition and human nature in every culture. And this chief taught me something very profound on leadership and on innovation that I share with just about any group I talk to about leadership. And I want to start this session with that, and then make a few quick points, and then open it up for questions, and so that you can ask me what's interesting to you and what is on your mind. But what he taught us was, he said, as the leader of this tribe, I have lived my life in such a way and for so long that I have these intellectual ruts. Now, I'm paraphrasing, of course, to translate it into English and into our cultural paradigms. But he said, when I grow up, I live my life and I get stuck in these intellectual ruts where what worked for me as a young man to become an old man, I think will work forever, because it worked for me. But I know intellectually that that will be the death blow of my tribe. I will lose my tribe. My women will be killed, my children will be killed, my tribe will disappear forever if I do not adapt and innovate and change to be relevant for the environment we're in. And the environment includes these other tribes that are trying to steal our stuff, that are trying to kill our people, that hate us, that and these terrorists that come running through, Western people that come through and try to, you know, destroy our hero system and our culture. He said, so I cannot rely on my own imagination or my own creativity to stay alive. He said, what I do is I look to the young. The young have not been trapped in the intellectual ruts of having lived a certain way and having that be successful, and then thinking you don't have to change. This is the story of survival. Leadership ultimately is about you perpetuating the goodness of the people that you belong to. And this tribal chief understood that if he relied on his own creativity, he would be too rigid and too unchanging to adapt fast enough to survive in an environment where there were a lot of threats. It's true with species, and it's true with civilizations, it's true with any group. It's true with the Air Force. If the Air Force gets stuck in its ways and cannot innovate fast enough to keep up with a changing world, we die. A community, If a community just keeps doing what they've always done and they don't branch out and actually start adapting to be relevant for the environment they're in, their economy will die. It will be a dead city, a ghost city, and it will go the way of the buffalo. Well, the buffalo is making a resurgence, so I got to stop using that analogy. But this is true in life. So my chief, he said this: I look to the young for ideas on what we should do to survive and to be relevant and to be vibrant and to be happy. But for every 100 ideas that I get from those kids, 98 of them will get us killed. 2 of them will be game-changing. The wisdom and discernment to test those ideas, agnostic of my own presuppositions or my own assumptions or my own sense of glory, history, heritage, and past, my ability to test them with a scientific method, following the facts of what works and what doesn't work to solve the problems of my day. That's how I test which ones I will invest in. And when I find those 2 that are game-changing, I don't care if it means I have to give up everything that I have lived for. I will invest in them because it means the survival of my tribe. And even though I heard that story when I was 7 years old, the longer I live and the more organizations, cultures, entities, enterprises that I get to be a part of as a leader and as a helper, the more the wisdom of that reality rings true. That if a group of people that have been brought together to do a certain purpose, whether it's a civilization, a tribe, a business, a community, doesn't matter what it is, if the leaders of that tribe think that they have to be the ones that come up with the creative ideas and clever suggestions on where they go, they have to be the visionary that takes them in the right direction, if they do not look to the young for clever, creative ideas that are open-minded and think differently about the problem and see the problem more clearly because they have not been tainted by years of bias, they will die. And the wise leaders are humble enough to really build a relationship of trust with the youngsters. Listen to them. And then test their ideas. Use the wisdom of the years to judge the ones that'll get you killed and the ones that'll make you successful, and then invest in the ones that are successful, even though every one of the cohort of a leader, the tribe elder, had all his brothers and sisters that he grew up with. They will all hate the idea because it's different. It's a change. And they'll say, how dare you? We have always been great on horseback as warriors. Why would you ever get rid of the horse? It is what has made us great since the beginning of mankind. Yet, the idea was to use the gun and the vehicle to have more mobility and security and let the horse go off the battlefield. But man, you would have been a heretic in 1935 if you were in the cavalry in the United States Army and you said or even breathed the words, "The horse is dead." In fact, there's a great article there that reminds me of how firmly we can be bound to our ideas. And the article, you'll have to look it up if you want to, but it's great. It basically is a research study that shows that if you got rid of the horse on the battlefield, the IQ of the soldier would go down by 20 points. That's how important the horse is on the battlefield. Talk about bias and about a lack of being able to look at the facts agnostically. So you can see how human nature is stubborn. We don't want to change. We don't like to change, and we won't unless we have wisdom that can fight against our natural tendencies. Okay? So let me give you the 4 elements that I think, and this is a little different, okay? Because I'm not telling you to be charismatic. I'm not telling you to be a visionary. I'm not telling you to do all these things that the normal narrative of what a creative leader would do to be successful. I am going to give you the nuts and bolts of how this can be done based on a lifetime of observation of organizations and distilling down what things actually work versus what things we think work because it plays well in a Hollywood movie. Because in a Hollywood movie, we all like to see the hero and the villain, and it makes it look easy that as long as you're the leader and you're a good leader, everything will go swimmingly. And again, nothing is more distant from the truth. The truth is it's about the group doing something. And if the group does it, it happens. If the leader says it and the group can't do it or won't do it, that leader is irrelevant. So we misattribute credit when we see a leader and we say, hey, they did great things. No, point the finger the other way. The team that they inspired did great things. So here are the 4 elements that I'll give you. And you probably have never heard these put together this way in any book, but having read thousands of books on leadership, I will tell you that these elements exist in just about every book you read on leadership if it's a good book. Okay, and I'm gonna leave you with a book at the end here that I want you to read on this very conversation about leadership and creativity. That's very short, very funny, but very true to life, and it's a story about a man that worked for Hallmark, a creative card company called Orbiting the Giant Hairball. Yeah, so if some of you have read it, I can see you chuckling and laughing because it talks about some of this. But these 4 are not just from that book. That book actually doesn't talk about some of these. This is an amalgamation of the thousands of books I've read and then my lifetime of experience on studying leadership, creative leadership, in the midst of bureaucracies and groups of people that tend to be bureaucratic. Because bureaucracy is nothing to hate. Where 2 or more people are gathered together, there is bureaucracy. And the more people, the more bureaucracy. It's the way we perpetuate something that was worked in the past, but it will never carve you out to a different place, a transformational place that moves you into a new direction. So here are the 4 things that you can do to be a transformational leader, and you don't have to change a darn thing about who you are. You could be the most dark-minded introvert that hates people, hates talking to people, hates looking at people. All you want to be is in your office with the door closed, and if somebody needs something, they slide a piece of paper under the door, and then you slide whatever they need out the door. You can be that kind of person, and you can be the greatest leader in the history of mankind. Because leadership is not about your personality. It's about how effectively you can inspire a group of people to do something important. Whether it's important or not is a judgment of history, okay? Whether they're inspired or not is going to be their judgment, not yours. So give up the illusion of control. As a leader, you have no control, and you never will. So let me get to these 4, because I know you're going, come on, just give me the 4 damn things, and stop talking. So here we go. And these are things that you have to build over a lifetime. So the first one is this. You have to be unusually good at discerning the human talents of another person. Now, this is something you have to work on an entire lifetime. So the first moment I met Mayor Todd Strange, he didn't know this, but I was paying attention to every body language, everything he says, everything he does, how he relates to other people, how he deals with situations, both good and bad, and I am drawing a mental picture of this man's strengths and of his weaknesses, of his biases, his propensities, all the things that make him who he is. I watch intently. Now, I don't say that to him because it freaks people out to think that you are paying that close of attention to everything they do. But the reason I've done that, and I learned that in Africa, and then worked on it my whole life, but the reason I did it is because when I was a little kid in Africa and some strange man was wandering through the tribe, I had to be very good about sensing whether this was a friend or foe, whether it was danger or good. And I had to be able to do it by the twitch of the arm or a look in the eye. And you had to pay close attention to your surrounding. You had to pay attention to your surrounding. And that meant people most of all. But it also works in hunting with animals. And we can get into how you hunt and track by paying attention, close attention. Every grass leaf, every disturbed piece of fauna, every piece of fur trapped on a branch, the wind, the smell, all the things that a good hunter and a good tracker, the same skill you need as a leader. But it's about people, watching people, understanding them, but you do it in a way that is not judgmental, okay? Because, those that live in glass houses, shouldn't throw the first stone. All of us are given gifts, and all of us have blind spots and downsides. So I don't want you to crucify me and criticize me because I have all kinds of bad things in who I am. We all have good in us. We have all bad in us, okay? I can't spell worth a darn, and I don't want you to judge me that I'm stupid because I can't spell very good. Just as I'm not going to judge you because you are colorblind, It's not your fault. We are all given different gifts. What I'm talking about when I talk about this one skill of discerning the human talents of another person is to look for what they are good at. Because I can take any person in this world, no matter what culture they come from, no matter what their IQ, no matter what their education level or experience is, and all it takes is time for me to be able to find a gift they have that is far better than I could ever do. Okay? We all have gifts. A great leader starts by paying attention to the people in their organization, in their orbit of influence, and discerning the gifts that each person has. Okay? So forgive the faults and focus on the quality. Focus on the gift. You build an organization based on flawed, imperfect people. Okay? And if you're a leader waiting for a perfect organization where everybody in the organization is perfect, you're going to be waiting a long time. Okay? We are flawed as human beings. We make mistakes all the time. A leader that builds on strength can build a team that can do anything. A leader that starts focusing on the negatives, that, hey, Joe is really strategic, but he is not really good with people, so let's fire him. That doesn't work. Okay? You'll end up firing everybody in your organization, and you'll be the only one standing until your boss fires you for firing everybody in the organization. So whatever techniques you want to use, and I won't go into that because that's a 6-hour dissertation on the techniques of observing people and making discernments on their gifts. That's a journey of a lifetime. But there's a lot of good books out there you can read on that, and you need to take that up as one of the 4 required skills if you want to be an innovative leader in this world. You better be good at discerning the human qualities of the people on your team. If you can't do that, the rest of this is not going to go well. Because the brilliance of talent management, where you take the right person with the right natural gift and put them in a job where they can succeed with that right natural gift, is a power of nature that is undeniable. Because when I take a person like Ron Sams here, for example, retired 3-star Air Force officer, now the end-all and be-all for the city of Montgomery, and I take his natural talent and I put him in a job like the mayor has done, where his talent just runs wild. He succeeds beyond everybody's wildest dreams, and the mayor doesn't have to do a damn thing. That's a good talent management decision right there. The mayor saw in him a talent, and he gave him a job that allows his talent to naturally uplift the nature of that job, and it's a blessing for everybody. That's leadership right there, based on that first principle. Second principle now. So let's say you are really good at this skill. You are good at discerning people, okay, without judging. And you can take people and put their talent to work in the right place at the right time for the right reason, for the strategy and the organization you have, all of which you can get other people to do. You don't have to be good at all that stuff if you don't want to, but you have to be good at picking the people. If you put all the right people in the right places and you're getting ready to go on the biggest journey of your life as a leader, you're going to need these other 3 in order to succeed at being innovative and being a great leader. The first, and these are not in order of priority because they are all intertwined, but the first is trust. Okay? So this is one where you're going to look in the mirror a little bit here on yourself. So you just picked you as a talented human being with a gift, and you're going to go in this job where that gift will be blessed. It'll bless the whole organization. Now, do I trust you enough to let you run with that without micromanaging you? Okay? And if the answer is no, then you're a horrible leader. You may be good at picking the right person, but you're going to be a disaster because you're going to start micromanaging what she's doing. She's going to make a decision. You're not going to understand it because you don't have the gift that she has to do that. And you're going to be like, ooh, I wouldn't do that, you know. That's a little scary. If that goes wrong, I'm dead, okay? This is now that false illusion of control. If you as a leader think you have control, you're done, because you don't. You succeed or fail based on whether your subordinates succeed or fail. And your subordinates will succeed if they're talented and you give them the freedom to do their job. So this is why the mayor is such a good leader, because not only did he pick a talented man and convince him to come out of retirement to do a hard job, I can tell you that after the brief, but he trusts him. And he lets Ron Sams do what Ron Sams does best. But the mayor has to trust that if Ron Sams screws this up, the mayor is going to jail, okay? Or getting fired anyway. And that's not comfortable. So the question for you is, how fully can you trust the people you choose in your organization to lead those things that need to be led? That's a hard one, okay? Because we're all type A control freak personalities, or you wouldn't be in uniform, generally speaking. That's not true. Many of you are not type A control freak personalities, and you tend to be the better leaders. Type A control freak personalities, especially if they're outgoing and kind of an extrovert, tend to trip over themselves as leaders more than anything else. In fact, the best organizations in the world, when you study all of them, are led generally by introverts. Because generally the ego and the pride and the boisterousness and all that of an extrovert tends, people flock to it and they're energized by it, but it's like crack cocaine. It's fleeting, it's not lasting. And the organization surges as long as that charismatic leader is in charge, and as soon as that charismatic leader is gone, the organization tails into the ground and goes away. Great leaders are the ones that build something that outlasts them. And those tend to be the introverts. Now, you can have extroverts that do this well, but that's the anomaly, actually, not the rule. Except for mayors. Mayors need to be extroverts. I'm just kidding with you, Mayor. Okay, because we have a great mayor in Prattville that's not an extrovert, General Gillespie, or Mayor Gillespie, is an introvert, but he's a fine mayor. In fact, one of the finest mayors I've watched. Present company accepted. So we've talked about discerning the human qualities. We've talked about trusting those human beings that you put into organizations or places to lead or to do work. And that's you, not them, okay? You got to trust. You got to be willing to let go that you have any control of success or failure and let them do their job. Now, if they fail, it's an opportunity to teach them. If they fail twice or three times, remove them and find somebody else. And then it goes back to job number one. You picked the wrong person with the wrong talent, and your judgment is the one that's the problem, not the person you picked. So don't blame. If you fire somebody that you put into a job, don't blame them for failing. Blame yourself for not having the insight and the discernment to pick the right person of the right quality to do the job. Okay, so discernment of the human quality. Trusting that human being to do what they have the talent to do. The third is risk-taking. Okay? Risk-taking. Life is a competition. And the competition results in winners and losers. And in our business, it's about the competition for values for our civilization, the survival of a civilization. The competitor that wins time and time again is the one that is good at taking smart risk. And generally, it's more risk than their competition. So this is the sine wave of civilization that you see going on, where a civilization is born in vigor, and they realize the need for security, and they are really good at securing the population. Then the population gets comfortable because they're so secure, and they think everybody's kind, everybody's nice, there's no evil in the world. And then somebody vanquishes them, and they, all 22 civilizations since the recorded history of mankind have gone away because of this same sine wave. So when I talk about risk, I'm talking about the fact that if you are not willing to take risk beyond what your competition is, whether it's business or national security, you will eventually lose. So you better really be good at taking risk. You better really be good at taking risk. And if you don't do it every day, we are creatures of habit. If you don't take risk every day, if you don't practice that muscle in your brain and your heart and your soul, you will be no good at it when the chips are down and the crisis is upon you. So there's lots of books you can read about this, but if you as a leader do not have a refined genius on how to take smart risk, and when the competition is really dire, you can take more risk than your competition without dying, and therefore you win. This skill in a leader is essential. So the question you need to ask yourself is, how aggressively do you practice taking risk as a leader? And if you don't, you're not going to be any good. And I would tell you that in this generation, to include me, except for my early years where I had to run for my life every couple of weeks, this generation has really not had to bear the burden of risk on your shoulders. When was the last time you literally feared for your life, where you were looking down the barrel of a gun and somebody was going to shoot you unless something extraordinary happened? I mean, you knew you were going to die, and you lived to tell about it. When was the last time where you knew you would not have a meal to eat if you didn't do something extraordinary? So the point here is that you live in a society where you have not had to necessarily burden a lot of risk on your shoulders as you've grown up. Now, there are other ways of bearing burden of risk: bureaucratic risk, personal risk, reputation, professional skill, and the trust of others. There are ways of taking risk that you need to practice, but you need to practice taking risk, or you're not going to be any good at being an innovative leader in a bureaucratic world. Because the bureaucracy of a big government like America's government and the DOD, the Department of Defense, it will squeeze every bit of risk out of your life. It will dumb it down to every lawyer telling you no. Forgive all the lawyers in the room. And you will never be able to do anything. You'll be in this tight little box, okay? So in your generation, because you don't have to take risk with life or limb necessarily, you better be taking risk bureaucratically so that you're practicing the habit of taking risk, and you're bumping up against the lines. So what I tell my subordinates, and all of you that have worked for me, you've heard this before, your job is to try to get me fired, okay? And if you are not getting in trouble every couple of days because you've been pushing the boundaries a little too aggressively, you're not trying hard enough. That's the way I make sure my subordinates learn this art of taking risk. So if you work for me, if you don't get in trouble with me every once in a while, I don't trust you that you are acting aggressively enough. This is the way I teach people to take risk. And the getting fired part, I'll say, go out there and start making decisions on my behalf. You better go home every day pretty sure you got me fired by signing me up for something that I shouldn't be doing, or writing a check that I can't cash. And I love it because it forces my team to take risk. So that's the third. First, again, your discernment of the human qualities. Second, your ability and willingness to trust those people. Third, your ability to take smart, prudent risk, but aggressive risk, bold risk. And believe me, when the contentious environment gets greater, the more you need to take aggressive risk. And we are living in a day and age right now where we are going to need to take some significant, bold risk, or we're going to be dead. in the water as a civilization. The trends of history are showing in that direction, and it's coming. So your generation better be ready. So we've talked about 3 attributes, okay? What's the last one? Okay, the last one isn't very sexy. Again, this has nothing to do with personality. I talked to you about already. The last one is the genius of measuring things, measuring outcomes. Okay, so let's take this story. You are a genius at picking the right qualities in another human being and putting that talent into the right job, the talent management. You are gifted at trusting that person and letting them do their job. You are brilliant at taking smart risk. The question is, do you know what the hell is going on? Meaning, you've asked them to do something. Do you have a good measure to see whether they're really doing it or not? Because believe it or not, even if you are the best at judging people and their qualities, you're good at taking risk, you're good at giving trust, there are people that are brilliant at fooling you. The posers of the world, the big talkers of the world, the people that look good in the shower, but they suck at their job. And all they want to do is look good. All they want to do is get the job. All they want to do is get the paycheck, but they never really care about effective outcome, about doing the job, about effective work, which is really the result of any progress, is work. A great leader is good at measuring anything. So when I ask you to do a job based on my assessment of your talent, my discernment of your talent, and I trust you and I ask you to take risk and I take risk with you, if I don't have a measurement out there that can agnostically tell me whether you are making progress on the job I have given you to do, I am useless as a leader. And the entire organization can go down because I don't have those checks in there to say, am I actually making progress or am I just spinning wheels moving in no direction at all? So, those are 4 things that come at innovative leadership from a very different angle. It kind of debunks this idea that you somehow have to be this extraordinary person, that you have to have an extraordinary personality, or you have to be so disciplined of mind, body, and soul that you are almost superhuman. No. You can be very flawed as a human being. You can have a whole team of people that are extremely flawed. You can be the most dysfunctional group of people placed on planet Earth. And you can be world-class leaders at doing any job you want if you can pick the right gifts in your people, put them in the right jobs, trust them, take risk with them, and measure your effectiveness. That's simple. You can be a social zoid that's dark, depressed, introverted, not wanting to talk to anybody, and you can lead the world out of hunger. And nobody will remember your name. Nobody will like you. Doesn't matter. Leadership is not about being liked. Leadership is not about being charismatic. Leadership is not about having a legacy or being remembered in the history books. Leadership is about effectiveness at taking human beings and allowing them to adapt, to be more relevant to their environment, and do things that help uplift the human condition. Period. Dot. It's not about you. And then when you do this well, and people start kissing your you-know-what, and telling you how good you are, and telling you, oh my God, you're a great leader, we couldn't have done this without you, do not fall for the trap of believing your own BS and your own press. Okay? And the higher you go, the harder it gets, because everybody wants to tell you how great you are, because human beings tend to be attracted to power. They're not attracted to you, okay? Believe me, look at me, okay? But they're attracted to power, and you need to guard against that. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it will corrupt you if you do not have your feet firmly planted on the ground of reality. Okay, so if you read that book, Orbiting in the Giant Hairball, it will tell the same story but with very different words, okay? and it will talk about how you can be a human being in a big bureaucracy, and you can help that bureaucracy move in a productive direction without the bureaucracy eating you alive and killing you, or without the bureaucracy kicking you out into space where you get fired and they just leave you in the dust and you're irrelevant to any effective progress. It's a fun book. It's a funny book. It'll make you laugh. And when you read the book, I do have to tell you, I grew up with a lot of chickens in Africa, okay? And my mom actually did show me that trick where if you put the chicken's beak on a line, they'll stay there and not move because they're paralyzed, because they are not looking at their environment. And that'll be a little teaser for the book. Okay, so let's open it up for some questions. And it's not just the crowd here. If the mayor wants to ask a question or anybody else in the room, let's have a few questions and talk just a little bit. Yeah, so the question is, when do you, the micromanage question, when do you, how long do you let your team explore and struggle, and when do you step in? And in my experience, again, this is part of the measuring talent of a leader, or the measuring skill of a leader. You should have measuring capability where you can kind of see what's going on in the organization. So the way I do this is I make friends in the organization, okay, deep down in the organization. I'll have breakfast at 6 a.m. and nobody even knows about it with the crew chief on the aircraft, okay? They won't talk to me the first time or the second time, but by 2 months of having breakfast with them, they are telling me all the dirt on what's going on in the organization, okay? So if you, and this goes back to measuring though, if you have the right measure, and believe me, when I get all that dirt, I can distinguish where it's just belly aching and, people talking trash and gossip and all the emotional insecurities and emotional, improprieties that are part of the human condition. I can distill between that. And I'm forgiving, because God knows I need forgiving. So, if somebody's imperfect, I don't care, as long as they're effective and they're not hurting people, as long as the culture of the group is respected, connected, and protected. That people feel like they're protected, they belong, they're respected, and they're connected to one another. As long as those exist, I can tolerate a lot of weird leadership, okay, and it's okay. But if you have the right measures, what you find is you can let them explore, let them work it out. Don't go in and start dictating solutions. When you've done that, you've failed. And your real failure was putting the wrong person in charge, okay? So you don't even have to micromanage. You can just, if it's that bad, you can remove the person. But if you have the right measuring sticks, where you're not only measuring outcomes, but you're measuring the culture of the place, the command climate, we call it in the military, where there are certain expectations I want. I want that expectation of respect and protect and connect. And as long as that's there and they're meeting their mark on outcomes that I've defined, that's where I spend my time. And the sausage making of how they get there, I'll let them go through all kinds of crazy stuff to get there and be very forgiving, as long as the outcomes are there. Outcomes aren't there, somebody's getting fired, okay? But I'll do it kindly, politely, and generally it's just detailing that person to another job where I think they do have talents. Because the whole time I've been watching them, okay? I've been doing what I did with the mayor, is I pay close attention to my leaders at how they lead and how they deal with good and bad situations. And by the time I have to fire somebody, I pretty much know where their weaknesses are, and I generally, in that amount of time, know where their strengths are, okay? So here's a leader I put in here to be, a bold, transformational leader, and their real gift is numbers, okay? And I didn't realize that at the time. So I'll find a job that needs a numbers person, and I'll say, Bob, I need you to move over here. Now, Bob may be a little insulted and say, why, am I being fired? I'm like, you can call it whatever you want, but I need your talent over here, okay? Get your butt over there. I need your talent here. You can save my ass as the leader of this place because I need your numbers over here. And just leave it at that, okay? And then privately, with dignity, you can say, the chemistry just wasn't working there, okay? I'm imperfect, you're imperfect. Your downsides were outweighing your upsides. I think your upsides are better fit here. What do you think? And he's like, yeah, I was pretty unhappy on that job, pretty frustrated. So there's a way of doing this with dignity, respect, but be bold, be aggressive, do not shy away from the fight, and be willing to break an organization in order to fix it. And I've watched the mayor do this. I've watched General Ballard do it. I've watched all kinds of leaders do this, and I've done it. I've done it well and I've done it bad, okay? So, and this is part of the risk too. Get out there and do something. And if you screw it up, you know, what I like to tell people is, if you aren't out there and aggressively testing all these pieces and parts of being a great transformational leader and creative leader in a bureaucratic world, then you're not going to learn anything. And you're going to learn one of two great things. You're going to either learn that you have a natural gift for this kind of work, or you do not have a natural gift for this kind of work. And if you don't, go find another job, because you'll be a lot happier. Because believe me, you will be frustrated out of your mind if you are not comfortable with this kind of work. So I'm lucky. I am comfortable with conflict, okay? I am comfortable with risk. I am comfortable with trust. Okay, it's kind of bizarre, but it's perfectly made for a national security professional that needs to fight and win for a living. Just like all of you need to be good at fighting and winning for a living, so America perpetuates its values. And each of you from other countries do the same when we have those shared values and we work together and the world is a better place. So it was a great question, and it goes to the measurement piece of leadership. So I hope that what I did is I kind of gave you a different look at leadership through some different words that don't exist in any book that I've ever read, just to kind of let you think at it from a different angle. And again, you'll see the seeds of all of these different principles in any book you read on leadership that's a well-written book and thoughtful. But it's just another way of looking at it, because I know I benefit from the fact just thinking about leadership from a different angle and a different perspective can sometimes help build that contextual sophistication of leadership where you're leading at a PhD level. And it's not a cookbook approach. It's a contextual approach where it depends on the people and the context of what you're trying to do. So thank you for giving me a few minutes of your day. I appreciate it. I am proud of you being a part of this and investing in yourselves to be great leaders. But remember, leadership is a habit, and habits are not forged unless you practice them. So practice these leadership attributes every day and measure yourself. Have friends that are coaches that measure you and give you the hard conversations about the fact that you're not so good at this. You are pretty good at this. And then optimize your contribution for the effectiveness of the organization. Do not make it about you. And your litmus test is, in 100 years, if the historians are writing about your organization and not about you, you've done it right. If they're talking about you, it either is them conflating you with the progress versus your people with the progress, or you were a total disaster and they might have liked you, but the whole thing went away when you went away. And that's all about you, not about humanity, not about values, not about this collective good that you are only valuable as a human being if others love you and you are giving to them. And this is the service before self we talk about in our values. Service before self. Others first, not you. So don't be a leader that gets trapped in the ivory tower of thinking it's all about you or thinking that you're good at that, okay? And you'll be okay. Pride cometh before the fall, and the one thing that will kill even the most gifted leader faster than anything else is ego, pride, arrogance, and bullheadedness, okay? So avoid those things at all costs. Thank you all very much. Have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for letting me use you as a friend.